spiritual law. It's a spiritual principle. With God, all things are possible. Unity's co-founder, Charles Fillmore, said this: "To be ignorant of mind and its laws is to be a child playing with fire, or a man manipulating powerful chemicals without knowing their relationship to one another. Mind is the one reservoir from which we draw all that we make up in our world, and it is through the laws of mind that we form our lives." The entire month of June, we are looking at minding our mind. Minding our mind, not only so that we can become aware of those unconscious thoughts that we've been holding, but to also generate and maintain and amplify that kind of thinking that expands our capacity for goodness. We're going to think thoughts, and we're going to put them into form, regardless of whether we're conscious or not. But this whole month, with minding the mind, we're just going to become a little more aware of that powerful invitation to know that we make up our world. And it's through the laws of mind that we form our lives. This phrase, mind over matter. In minding our mind, I've started to think about it. I thought it was such a clever talk title, but as I thought about it more and more, I recognized that it's not entirely accurate. Because if mind is matter, if we form the matter that we hold in our mind, and matter comes from our mind, then they're actually one. So it's not really mind over matter. More accurately, we say it's mind as matter. And I want to give you some examples of mind as matter. You may be familiar with the Indian yogis who can slow their, let's have this quote first, because it really helps. Trained thought is more powerful than untrained thought. And that comes back to how whatever we're holding in mind, whether we're conscious of it or not, is going to manifest in our world. So when we actually focus and train our thought on the magnificence of our divine inheritance, then we're expanding our capacity for goodness. Okay, now we're going to have some evidence. Indian yogis can slow their heart rate down during meditation. I think maybe most of you know that. But did you know that the Tibetan monks can generate so much body heat when they are meditating that they actually can dry wet sheets, like wet bed sheets? A bona fide experiment with real MD doctors hooked up all this equipment to these different Tibetan monks. They put the group of Tibetan monks into a room that was 40 degrees. They put wet sheets on top of the monks, and then they filmed everything. And within minutes, steam started coming off of those wet sheets. And within an hour, those wet sheets were dry. Can you imagine generating that much body heat? And then I love the sense of humor that the monks had, because then they decided that this was a really fun thing and they were getting all kinds of notoriety. So they started having contests who could dry the most wet sheets in one night. But seriously, it's not mind over matter. It's mind as matter. Perhaps more familiar to most people is the placebo effect, where you take a pill believing that the pill can cure whatever is ailing you in that moment. It doesn't matter that the pill can or can't. You believe it can, so it does. Princeton University had a group of students that took it one step further, and they decided they were going to throw a kegger, a non-alcoholic keg party for some of their friends. But they didn't tell their friends it was non-alcoholic. They filled the kegs with O'Doul's non-alcoholic beer, which has a content of 0.4% alcohol versus regular beer, which is like 5%. And then they had this party, and they laughed and they laughed and they laughed as they watched their friends get silly. And then pretty soon their friends were slurring their words, and eventually their friends slept on the floor overnight because they thought they were getting drunk. It was a placebo effect. You might not be familiar with the term the nocebo effect. It's when you have something that you think is going to happen to you that'll make you sick, or that'll make you have a reaction, but it wasn't really that thing that you get the reaction, you get the illness anyway. They've done studies where people who were willing to touch poison ivy, they put them in a room and said, here, touch this poison ivy, and every person got the rash and the blisters, but it wasn't poison ivy. It wasn't poison ivy. So it's not mind over matter, it's mind as matter. Say that with me, please. Mind as matter. There are many, many sports visualization stories about the power of the mind. And this one is, again, about golf. I can't believe I'm telling you another golf story, but here we go. It's a golf story. In the Vietnam War, Air Force Colonel George Hall was held in captivity for 7.5 years, one of the longest times that any of the POWs spent in internment. One of the things that Colonel Hall did while he was in the prison camp was go to a happy place. And his happy place was the golf course. So in his mind, he played every golf course he had ever played. And then he would play golf courses he hadn't played yet, but he had heard about, like different particular holes that were difficult. And he would play them in his mind over and over again. Now, before he went into the service, Colonel Hall had a handicap of 4. He was an amazing golfer before he went into service. And when he got out, he was invited immediately to play in the 1973 Pro-Am in New Orleans. And he golfed 76. 76. And they were like, wow, is that luck? And he said, no, I have kept my muscle memory through the power of my imagination. Mind over matter? No. Say it with me. Mind as matter. There are bajillion studies about positive attitude and how when you stay in prayer more often or you meditate more often and you have this positive attitude that your life changes dramatically. And I'm just going to stick it right up there, positive attitude. In 1989, there was a study at Stanford University that took 86 women who were in the late stages of breast cancer, divided them in half. Half of them got that awesome standard medical care that you can get at Stanford University Medical Center, and the other half got that same care, but they also got a support group. They got support sessions, and in those sessions they were able to share their feelings, they were able to connect with other patients, they were open to and given a great deal of positive encouragement. So 10 years later, at the end of the study, what they found out were the group of women who were in the support sessions, they lived twice as long as the people who got that same level of medical care. This is positive attitude, I think, is one of the greatest gifts of being in spiritual community. I am grateful every day for this unity community. Because in this unity community, I can come in and I can share my feelings. You've seen me laugh. Some of you have seen me cry. And a few of you have even seen me get really angry, like, you know, you've seen me do that. But every week, I have the opportunity to be with people. I have the opportunity to pray with people. I have the opportunity to share lessons that you may think are for you. Ha ha ha. They're for me too. They're for me too, to remind myself of the immense power that I have within me. To remind myself that I am never alone. To remind myself that if I don't like the results in my life that I'm producing, that I can think something else and change my life. I received this gift of positive attitude from my interactions with this spiritual community. I think exercising this spiritual muscle is very much like making the commitment to get your body in shape. Yes? You may not see the connection yet, but you will in just a minute. So if you were to decide to get your body in shape, what would you do? Tell me.
Exercise.
You would exercise and
Diet.
Diet. You'd have a diet. And what else would you do? You what? Lift weights. Ooh, that's very good. More stuff, or do we have a good list going?
Long walk.
Take a long walk. Okay, so here's the list that I came up with. Proper fuel, which is diet. We balance our foods. We make sure that we have a healthy intake. We push our limitations. If we were lifting weights, we would lift just a little bit more than we were comfortable. If we were walking, we'd walk just a little bit more than we thought, or run just a little bit more than we thought. And then there's repetition. We have some house guests staying with us, and we're driving around town, and I said, oh yes, this is Halliburton Park. I walked there once. And they laughed, and I was like, yeah, it's repetition. We got to do it over and over and over again to get results. And then number 4 is visualize. Have a vision of where we're going and mark progress along the way. So take a before picture, and then take an in-between picture, and then take an after picture, so you can celebrate the progress that you're making, that it's very visual, that it's tangible, you're getting tangible results. Or create a calendar where you can X the days where you actually engage in exercise. And the last one is get a personal trainer, because sometimes we need that kind of accountability. We just need an accountability partner or an accountability buddy who's going to say, did you get up this morning, go to the gym, or have you been yet? I'll come by and pick you up. So you see where this is going. It's just like the spiritual muscle of exercising spiritual law. Proper fuel, fill the mind with positivity, read good books, watch funny videos on YouTube, push your limitations. With God, all things are possible. Go to the edges of your consciousness and fall off. You will not be the only person in the unknown. I will be there with you. Repetition, meditate every day, even if it's for 5 minutes, do it every day. And visualize, create that vision board, or put a list on your refrigerator and mark things off. Yes, I went to the gym, then I took my walk, then I went to the pool for a swim, or I went to the beach and I did this. Mark it off. I'm reminded of when my kids were little, we decided one summer that we were going to watch every single James Bond movie. And so we looked up on the research, and we looked at the card catalog at the library, and we wrote down the name of every James Bond movie and which library it was in, so we could cross them off as we went through the summer. It was a visual tool to support our higher good. And number 5, get a spiritual teacher and or a spiritual community. I can guarantee that there is at least one person in here who's willing to be your accountability partner, who's willing to pray with you, who's willing to remind you that you're not alone, willing to remind you that you are the light of the world, to remind you that you have every bit of wisdom inside of you that you ever needed, to remind you that you are compassionate, to remind you that you are here to bless other people, to remind you that you are here to share your gifts with the world. That's what a spiritual community does. And once we create that energy, then it's like if we can think it, we can be it. If we can dream it, we can do it. We know because we're doing it, and therefore we dreamed it. We are it, therefore we must have thought it. That's what this is all about. That's what life is all about. That's what transformation is all about. That's what the good news is all about. Einstein says everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you can't help but get that reality. It can be no other way. I want to end with a story that my colleague, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson, tells about a time when she was in ministerial school and she was driving down a dark country road in her car. Now, around here, we have plenty of dark country roads. They're that stretch with no streetlights between pockets of civilization, so I think you know what I'm talking about. It was one of those kinds of nights. There she is, driving in her car, and all of a sudden her headlights went out, the dashboard went out, and the car died. And as she was coasting to a stop, her mind went nuts. Car that's broken down, dark country road, can't see anything, doesn't know what to do. She is not a woman who is of large stature, so she's a single woman, very small, all by herself. And then her mind starts spinning in a different direction. In school, she'd been working on just that day, remembering that the spiritual power that she needs and that she wants and desires is always within her. And then the scripture pops into her head, with God all things are possible. And she thinks, surely my car will start now. The spiritual power is within me. With God, all things are possible. She turns the key, the lights come on, the dash comes on, the car comes on, and she drives away. She's like, that was fabulous, but I better go, because this is my favorite part of the story. The next day she goes to the mechanic, and she drives the car to the mechanic, and she said, I was on this country road, it was dark, blah, 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 and this is what happened. He's like, yeah, right, lady. And then he opens up the hood, and then he closes the hood, and he feels the top of the hood, and he looks at her and he said, how did you get here? And she said, I drove. And he looks at her and he feels the hood, and he opens the hood, and he looks at the engine, and he said, how did you get here? And she said, I drove. And he said, you better come take a look at this. Every single spark plug wire was disconnected. Every single spot. There is no possible explanation for how that car was operative. The power within. With God, all things are possible. Even driving a car with no connecting thingy things. It's not mind over matter. It's mind as matter. Let's say it again. It's mind as matter. Everything is energy. And that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you can't help but get that reality. It can be no other way. Einstein went on to say, it's not philosophy, it's physics. I would say it's not religion, it's spirituality. It's spiritual law. With God, all things are possible. So let's immerse ourselves in that God energy, that God wisdom, that God love, that God compassion as we come into a time of meditation.